think we'll go ahead and get started. All right, welcome to Forage Friday. We're so glad you're joining us today for the Minnesota Forage Agronomy and Horticulture Live session. My name is Kirsten Cook. I am an extension educator in Stevens County. Forage Friday is brought to you by Minnesota Forage. From in-school to after-school, clubs to camps, Forage's positive youth development programs are available in your local community and welcome children who want to have fun, learn, and grow. In Minnesota, Forage is brought to you by the University of Minnesota Extension. Extension's experts and educators share university knowledge, information, and tools you can use every day to improve your life. As we get started, here are a few quick reminders about Zoom meeting etiquette. We need to remember our good manners when we're online, just like we do when we're meeting face-to-face. Your microphone will be muted, but feel free to use the chat box for questions. The chat will go to Brian and Anya, and they'll let me know questions as we go. You can ask questions or make comments at any time. And we don't want you to miss out on any of our agronomy and horticulture fun, so remember to be respectful of other participants so that we don't have to remove you from our session, which I know you all will be. At 4-H meetings and other 4-H opportunities, we like to start with the 4-H Pledge. The 4-H Pledge is a great way to unite us all in 4-H youth development. Its meaning is as true today as when it was first created. So we're gonna go ahead, and if you'll join me with the 4-H Pledge, we'll get started. I pledge my head to clear thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, my health to better living, for my family, my club, my community, my country, and my world. All right, so today we are gonna learn a little bit about forages. By definition, forage is plant material eaten by grazing livestock such as cattle, goats, sheep, and horses. In the chat, what are some types of forages that you know of? Does anybody know of what a forage, an example?
Oats.
Yes, that's a great one.
Alfalfa.
Yes. So some examples, corn, yep.
Corn.
So some examples include silage, haylage, hay, alfalfa, fodder, legumes, millet, rye, winter wheat, sorghum, Sudan grass, and teff grass. Forages are grown on farms across the world. Some of the most common in our area are corn for silage, alfalfa, and grass hay. Forages can be fed individually by feeding a bale of hay in a feeder, for example, or as part of a total mixed ration. On my farm, we harvest silage, alfalfa, hay, oat straw, rye, and sorghum Sudan grass that we use to feed our cattle during the winter. Our corn and sorghum Sudan grass is harvested and put into a pile as silage, while the alfalfa, hay, oat straw, and rye are cut and baled into round or large square bales. We harvest these things in the summer and fall and then save them for the winter. We use them in the winter by using a tub grinder to create a mixture of the hays and straws. So we mix the really good hay with some of the poorer hay and make a nice mixture. We then use our TMR wagon, or a total mixed ration wagon, to mix the hay mixture with our silage. Farmers can add in many different ingredients depending on the nutritional needs of their cattle and the availability of ingredients to them. A TMR, or total mixed ration, is like a hot dish for cattle. We do this to make the best use of our feed sources and to create a balanced, nutritious diet for our cattle. We also may use forages for bedding, for instance, like oat or wheat straw or corn stalks we often use for bedding. On the screen, you can see the path that some forages may take. So the first picture here is a picture of alfalfa being grown in a field, and then the next is being baled into round bales. The third picture on the far right is corn being cut for silage. And then on the bottom, you'll see a tub grinder grinding big round bales of hay into a pile. And then that pile with the pile of silage is mixed together into the TMR mixer, which you can see there in the dairy barn. That mixes everything up just like a blender, and then we feed it to the cattle that way. So that's how forages get from the field to the cows. So let's talk about some of these forages. Alfalfa is one of the most common forages and is most commonly planted in the Midwest. In Minnesota, it is used to feed beef and dairy cattle, horses, sheep, and goats. It is considered a high quality hay. It can be raised in a field alone, or it could be mixed with other grasses. Sometimes people will plant alfalfa with oats or different things to cut with it. That being said, alfalfa actually isn't a grass. It's a member of the legume family. It's a perennial, so it continues to grow, and it looks very clover-like. So you can see in the picture, from kind of when it was a seedling all the way up, it looks like a large clover. You'll also notice the roots alfalfa has. Many commercial alfalfa varieties have a deep taproot, so like one long root that goes really far down, and some have a branch root. But either way, alfalfa roots are several feet deep and can grow over to 20 feet below the ground. This makes alfalfa a drought-resistant forage, and that's why it's so popular. Alfalfa is an upright green plant with leaflets and typically a purple flower on the top. It can grow to be 3 to 4 feet if it is not cut. But farmers typically cut it. Farmers cut their alfalfa when the plant reaches 25 to 50% blooms across the field. So in the last picture, you can see blooms, and when you see that about 25% of the way across your field, that's when you cut it. To bale, farmers cut alfalfa with a sickle mower, a disc mower, or a hay vine. Then they typically rake their alfalfa and then bale it into round or square bales. The whole process can take about a few days or a week, depending on the weather. You might hear farmers sometimes say, make hay while the sun shines. And that's said because moisture makes a huge difference on the quality of hay and alfalfa. Once the bales are made, then they're stacked and fed or saved for winter, as is most common. The process for baling alfalfa is the same for making hay and straw bales. Here's a video of baling straw. Straw is a byproduct of cereal grains, which are like your oats and rye and barley and wheat, or of a plant. The most common straws come from wheat and oats in our area. Here you can see they harvest the grain first. This style combine leaves the straw in a windrow. So following harvesting, the tractor and baler come along and pick it up, and that creates the bales. So in this picture, they're making large square bales. Those are often used at dairy farms because they're easy to stack. Straw can be made and hay can be made into round bales or small squares, or like in this video, the large square bales, depending on the farmer's needs. Once the straw is baled, it is picked up and stored at the farm until they are ready to use it. On our farm, we use straw both for bedding and we mix it in with our feed. Other forages that would be baled would be wild grass hay, ryegrass, teff grass, or teff grass. These are harvested the same as alfalfa and again stored and used for feed later. These are just a few types of forages and hays. A popular forage, especially with cattle and dairy farms, is haylage. Haylage is hay that is stored in a wet or damp state. It is often made of alfalfa and stored in a pile. Most often, this form of forage is fed to dairy cattle as part of their total mixed ration. Here you can see a local dairy is cutting their alfalfa using a disc-style mower. So they actually have 3 different parts to the mower on there, 1 in the front and then 2 on the back. Once the hay is cut, then they come along with a merger or a rake and make it into a larger windrow. It is then picked up and loaded into the truck to be taken to the farm. So when making haylage, we don't bale it. We're going to pick it up loose like this. So there you can see that they're picking it up. At the farm, the haylage is then dumped out of the truck and pushed into a pile or put into a silo. Here they're putting it into a pile and packing the hay material to aid in the fermentation and storage process. The pile will be fed as a TMR to cattle. Haylage is typically at 40 to 60% moisture, while the hay we talked about earlier is at 20% moisture or under. So here the trucks dump it into a pile, and then the large tractors come behind and push the haylage up onto the pile, and then their weight packs it down into a nice firm pile. You can see when the tractor's driving, it's pushing the pile down and compacting it. So silage is another very popular forage, and silage is similar in concept to haylage, except it's made from corn or sorghum most often. In this video, they're chopping silage. Note, the same machine chops and throws the silage into the trailer, whereas haylage, there were additional steps. Corn raised for silage is typically cut at 60 to 70% moisture. It's tricky to know the right time to harvest, as you do not want the corn too moist and you do not want it too dry for silage. It needs to be just right to aid in the fermentation process and to last the best. If you are interested in learning more about the moisture of silage, Google testing silage moisture in a microwave. It's a test you can do at home with fresh silage to see how much moisture is in the corn. Silage, like haylage, can be put in a silo or in a pile. As you see here, they're putting it in a pile. The video is now showing you the chopper, and you can see how it flies right into the truck. So chunks of silage are about this big. And that takes the ear of corn, the stalk, everything. Now that we learned a few forage facts, we can join in a little forage trivia. But first, does anyone have any questions? If you have a question, just go ahead and type it in the chat. Okay. So while we're waiting to see if there's any questions, you guys can go ahead and log into kahoot.it on your computer, tablet, phone, whatever you might have. If you are using one device, you can just open a second tab. We'll go ahead. We can answer some questions after a while too. So once you get to kahoot.it, go ahead and type this code game pin in. And it'll ask you to put your name. You can put your name or nickname, whatever you'd like. If you're having troubles logging in, just type in the chat, let us know. Otherwise, if you grab a piece of paper, you can follow along just like that. So we're getting a few in Kahoot. So again, kahoot.it, and then type the game pin in.
And as Kirsten said, if you don't have a second device, you're having issues, a piece of paper and a pencil or crayon works just as well too.
All right, is everyone that wants to be in the, oh, we got a few more. So if you guys live near, out in the country or near the country, you might notice that right now there's a lot of alfalfa being cut. So alfalfa can be cut 3 to 4 times a year. And the first cutting of alfalfa, we just did ours last week. So you'll see that being cut and baled up quite a bit. We just hauled some home yesterday, and I don't know about Brian, but I don't think anything really beats the smell of fresh alfalfa. It smells good, but kind of like cut grass.
Fresh alfalfa and silage, that's nothing, sometimes better than those smells, those freshly cut, those smells, you're right.
Yes. All right. Well, we've got 14 in. I think we'll go ahead and get started here. So you'll see a question on the screen and then answer to the shape on your screen. What is this forage? So see in this picture, is it Kentucky bluegrass, smooth brown grass, common cockaburr, or curly dock? All right, so we got kind of mixed answers. Yes, that's Kentucky bluegrass, which is a very common grass for yards and for forages. Grass, legumes, and silage are all called what? Cake, calf pellets, vitamins and supplements, or forage? Great. Yes, they are called forages. Caleb's still in the lead. Name this forage. Is it red clover, white clover, wheat, or milkweed? Correct, it is red clover. Well, the clover looks to me almost purple, but they do call that red clover. What is this forage? Is it red clover, canola, alfalfa, or orchard grass? So this is one we talked about today. Yes, it's alfalfa, which is probably the most common forage in the Midwest. Which is haylage? So one of these pictures is a round bale of hay and one is haylage. It's kind of a tricky one. Yeah, so the picture on the left is the haylage, yep. What is this plant? Is it Johnson grass, corn, wheat, or barnyard grass? So this is what we talked about is cut for silage. And yes, everyone got it. That is corn. You can see the corn popping up all over out in the fields right now. Ooh, Britta is way in the lead now. Question 7, name this forage. Is it curly dock, timothy, panicum, or foxtail? So think about what it looks like. I think that's a good hint for this one. So yes, it's foxtail. It's a grass that has a really bushy end to it. Oh, PJ sneaking up. Are straws and forages lower or higher in energy than the grain? Yes, they're lower. So the grain is the higher energy part of the plant. What is this plant? Is it barley, oats, wheat, or rye? So these are all cereal grains that we talked about. Yep, so it's oats. There's lots of oats planted in our area, and mostly for people who raise cattle. They use the oats for feed and then the straw for bedding. Name this forage. Is it ryegrass, rye, barley, or wheat? It is rye. So we grow rye on our farm, and we actually cut that. We don't combine it. We cut it and bale it up and use it as feed. Name this forage. Wheat, barley, rye, or oats? That is wheat. What is this kind of grass? Smooth brown grass, milkweed, barley, or black nightshade? That's smooth brown grass. If you did the forage kits last year, we had brown grass growing in there. So that's a good grass for forages. What is the first step of making haylage? Chopping it, packing it, transporting it, or mowing it? So yeah, mowing it. So you chop silage because that's a one-step process. Mowing or cutting haylage is you mow or cut that, and then you rake or merge it. And our last question, Baling hay should be done when the moisture content is what? Under 20%, under 30%, 40%, or 50%? Great, yes, under 20%. We like our hay nice and dry. Let's see here who got the most right. Clearwater group is in 3rd place. 2nd place is whoever put cow as their nickname. And the winner is PJ. Great job, guys. So how can you turn a forage into a 4-H exhibit? There are so many options. This is a fun new area for our agronomy projects, and I encourage you guys all to try it. You can, even if you don't raise forages yourself, you can meet with a local farmer and learn about it and do it that way. So one way would be to bring in a sample. So on the left, you see that the guy is taking a sample from the round bale. You can often get the equipment to take samples from like the extension office. Some extension offices have them, or a local feed store would have it, and they can help you with that. So you take a sample and you send your sample in to get it analyzed, and so that you can learn the nutritional value of it. So most farmers request a nutritional analysis before buying hay, or like we take a sample of our hay before we start mixing it into our TMR mix, so that we know what we're feeding our animals and what we might need to add to their diet to make it a balanced diet. So forages that you could bring in this way, as you see on the right, are you can bring them in a 3 to 5 inch bundle, or in a clear container, or a slab. So those are like square bale. It's just a slab of a square bale. The forages could be alfalfa, warm season grasses, cool season grasses, sorghum, native grass, or silage. So that's one way you can bring forage to the fair. Another way is to make an educational display. So you could make a display on the nutritional analysis of a certain forage, or of multiple forages, on plant reproduction, plant growth factors, the characteristics of the plant, or growing and using it as a forage, examples of diseases that might be found in those forages, and so on. So there's lots of opportunities to learn more about forages and to make an exhibit for the fair. So are there any questions? Otherwise, our next Agronomy and Horticulture series presentation is on June 24th, and the topic that day would be weeds, insects, and diseases.